time, you have measured your life by what you see. You have looked at your bank balance, your unfinished dreams, your unanswered prayers, and you have wondered whether God truly sees you. You ask questions in silence that you are afraid to speak aloud. You have said, God, I am faithful, but I am tired. I trust you, but I am weary. I believe, but I am struggling to understand why the door has not opened yet. And God has heard every word you never said. He has counted every tear that fell in the night when no one else knew your pain. He has watched you remain obedient when it would have been easier to quit. And now he is declaring that the season of quiet endurance is giving way to a season of visible provision. Understand this truth deeply. God does not bless randomly, and he does not move impulsively. When God releases wealth, it is never just about money. It is about alignment. It is about trust refined through fire. It is about a heart that has been shaped to carry what is coming without being destroyed by it. If God had given you this blessing earlier, it might have broken you, distracted you, or pulled you away from his presence. But now, after the waiting, after the stretching, after the refining, your spirit has been enlarged. You are not the same person you were before the delay. You have learned to pray when answers were slow. You have learned to praise when evidence was missing. You have learned to stand when everything inside you wanted to sit down and surrender. And because of that, God can now trust you with more. There is a mystery in how God works. He often hides abundance inside obedience that looks ordinary. You thought you were just being faithful in small things. You thought your prayers were repetitive, your efforts unnoticed, your sacrifices unseen. But in the unseen realm, God was recording every act of obedience as a seed. Not a single seed was wasted. Not a single act of faith was ignored. What you planted in tears is about to return in harvest. And the harvest will not look like a neat line of predictable blessings. It will come in ways you did not plan for, through channels you did not expect, and at a time that proves only God could have arranged it. God is about to surprise you. He is about to interrupt your assumptions. He is about to bless you in a way that forces you to say, this could not have been my doing. The wealth God is releasing will not be the result of frantic striving or desperate chasing. It will be the fruit of divine favor resting upon your life. Doors will open that you did not knock on. Opportunities will appear that you did not apply for. Resources will come from places you never considered. And when it happens, you will realize that God was working behind the scenes while you thought nothing was happening at all. You must understand something critical right now. The delay was not a denial. The silence was not absence. The waiting was not punishment. It was preparation. God was training your spirit to recognize his voice above the noise of fear. He was teaching you to depend on him rather than on visible supply. He was shifting your mindset from survival to stewardship, because the wealth that is coming is not meant to sit idle. It is not meant to inflate your ego or isolate you from others. It is meant to flow through you as a channel of God's purpose on the earth. Many people want the blessing, but they are not ready for the responsibility. Wealth magnifies what already exists in the heart. If fear rules you, wealth will amplify fear. If pride rules you, wealth will amplify pride. But if faith rules you, wealth becomes a tool for God's glory. God has been working on your heart long before he works on your circumstances. He has been shaping your character so that when the blessing arrives, it will not replace him in your life, but point you back to him with even greater reverence. Right now, God is asking you to shift how you see yourself. You have lived too long with a mindset of limitation. You have learned to expect less so you would not be disappointed. You have trained yourself to be cautious with hope because hope hurts when it seems unanswered. But God is calling you out of small expectations. He is calling you to enlarge your vision, not based on your ability, but on His nature. God is not limited by your history. He is not restricted by your past failures. He is not intimidated by your current lack. He is the source of all provision. And when He decides to release wealth, no system, no economy, no obstacle can stop it. There is a divine timing to everything God does. When the time is not right, nothing you do can force it. But when the time is right, nothing can prevent it. You are standing at the edge of a divine moment. The reason this message feels heavy on your heart is because your spirit recognizes that something is aligning. The pressure you have felt lately, the restlessness, the sense that something is about to change is not anxiety, it is anticipation. God is stirring you to get ready, not to panic, but to prepare your faith. Preparation does not mean obsessing over money. It means aligning your heart with God's purposes. It means remaining faithful in what you have right now. It means honoring God with your thoughts, your words, and your actions, even before the blessing arrives. God watches how you handle lack because it reveals how you will handle abundance. If you honor Him now, you will honor Him then. If you trust Him now, you will trust Him when the numbers change. And because you have remained faithful, God is preparing to entrust you with more. Unexpected wealth often comes disguised as an opportunity that requires courage. It may come as an idea that seems too simple to be significant. It may come as a connection that appears ordinary at first. Do not dismiss small beginnings. God delights in starting small and finishing big so that no one can take credit for what He does. Stay spiritually alert. Stay prayerful. Stay humble, because when God moves suddenly, you must be ready to respond in faith, not fear. There will be moments when you are tempted to question whether you deserve what God is doing. You will remember your mistakes, your weaknesses, your moments of doubt. But hear this clearly, God's blessing is not a reward for perfection. It is an expression of grace. He blesses not because you are flawless, but because He is faithful. If blessings were earned by human effort alone, no one would qualify. But God chooses to bless those who trust Him, even when their trust is imperfect. When the wealth comes, and He will come, guard your heart. Do not allow fear of loss to replace faith in God. Do not allow comparison to steal your joy. What God does in your life is uniquely designed for your calling. Stay anchored in gratitude. Gratitude keeps your heart soft. Gratitude keeps your spirit humble. Gratitude reminds you that every good thing flows from God, not from your own strength. You may be thinking that this message sounds too bold, too hopeful, too good to be true. But God has never been limited by human logic. He specializes in doing what seems impossible so that faith can rise where doubt once ruled. The wealth God is sending will answer prayers you stopped praying out loud. It will restore dreams you quietly buried. It will give you the ability to be a blessing where you once felt powerless. Do not rush the process. Do not try to control the outcome. Your responsibility is not to make it happen, but to stay faithful while God does what only He can do. There is a peace that comes when you realize that provision is not your burden to carry. God is your source. People are not your source. Systems are not your source. God alone is your source, and He never runs dry. Right now, make room in your heart for what God is about to do. Release bitterness from past disappointments. Release fear from past failures. Release the belief that you must struggle forever. God is rewriting your story. He is shifting your narrative from barely enough to more than enough. Not so you can boast, but so you can testify to His goodness. The unexpected wealth God is sending will not only meet your needs, it will reveal His character. It will teach you that waiting was not wasted time. It will prove that obedience is never in vain. It will show you that God sees what others overlook. And when you look back on this season, you will realize that the greatest miracle was not the money itself, but the transformation that took place in your heart along the way. Stay ready, stay faithful, stay close to God. Because when He moves completely. And when He blesses with purpose. What is coming will not leave you the same. It will deepen your faith, expand your vision, and strengthen your trust in the God who never forgets His promises. And when the unexpected becomes reality, you will know beyond any doubt that it was God and God alone who made a way. And as this unfolding continues, understand that God is not merely adjusting your circumstances, He is repositioning your identity. For too long, you have seen yourself through the lens of scarcity, shaped by what was missing rather than by who God is. But God is now restoring vision to your spirit. He is teaching you to see yourself not as someone trying to survive, but as someone entrusted with responsibility. This shift is subtle, yet powerful. When God prepares to release provision, He first prepares perception. He lifts your eyes so you no longer define possibility by yesterday's limitations, but by His eternal nature. There are moments when God withholds explanation on purpose. He allows mystery to remain so faith can mature beyond dependence on understanding. If God explained every step, you would lean on logic instead of trust. And so He has allowed you to walk in seasons where clarity was absent, but obedience was present. That obedience has been speaking on your behalf in realms you cannot see. God has been answering prayers. You forgot you prayed, aligning outcomes with promises you barely dared to believe. Nothing has been wasted. Not one faithful step, not one silent prayer. The wealth that is coming will carry weight, not because of its size, but because of its assignment. God does not give lightly what He has refined carefully. This is why your journey has been layered with tension, with waiting, with moments of uncertainty that stretched your faith beyond comfort. God was strengthening your spiritual muscles so you could stand steady when the blessing arrives. Because abundance without grounding can destabilize a soul, but abundance resting on trust becomes a testimony of God's wisdom. You will notice that as this season approaches, your desires are changing. What once seemed important now feels empty. What once felt urgent now feels secondary. This is not loss, this is alignment. God is purifying your motives, ensuring that what He places in your hands will not compete with His place in your heart. He is teaching you to value presence over possession, purpose over pressure. And from that place of clarity, He releases provision that does not corrupt but completes. Be aware that unexpected wealth often comes after unexpected pruning. God removes what no longer serves the future He is preparing. Relationships may have shifted, opportunities may have closed, familiar paths may have disappeared. This was not abandonment. This was protection. God was clearing space so that when the blessing comes, it has room to breathe, room to grow, room to fulfill its calling without being suffocated by old limitations. There is also a quiet courage God is awakening within you. A courage not rooted in confidence in yourself, but in confidence in Him. This courage will allow you to say yes when fear tries to whisper no. It will allow you to step forward when comfort begs you to stay still. The wealth God sends may require decisions that test your trust. You may be called to act before everything makes sense. Remember, faith does not wait for certainty. It responds to calling as the blessing draws nearer. Guard your inner life fiercely. Stay anchored in prayer, not as a ritual, but as a relationship. Speak honestly with God. Listen attentively. Let gratitude shape your thoughts, even before you see the outcome. Gratitude is not a response to provision, it is a posture that welcomes it. A grateful heart recognizes God as the source long before the supply arrives. Do not underestimate the power of quiet obedience in this season. You may feel unnoticed, you may feel unseen, but God specializes in working in the hidden places. What He does in secret carries public impact. When the wealth appears, many will see the result, but not the process. They will marvel at the outcome without understanding the years of faith that preceded it. Let this keep you humble and compassionate, remembering where God brought you from. God is also teaching you discernment. Not every opportunity is a blessing, and not every open door is from Him. The provision He sends will come with peace, not pressure. It will align with His nature, not provoke anxiety. Learn to recognize the difference between urgency driven by fear and movement inspired by faith. God does not rush you, He leads you. When doubts attempt to resurface, remind your soul of this truth. God's timing. NG is intentional, and His generosity is purposeful. He is not late, He is precise. He arrives at the exact moment when your heart can receive without being overwhelmed and your life can steward without being distracted. Trust the precision of His plan, even when it defies your expectations. And when the unexpected wealth finally manifests, let worship be your first response, not performance, not display, but genuine reverence. Let your life speak louder than your words. Let generosity flow naturally. Let wisdom guide your decisions. Let humility keep you teachable. Wealth fades, but alignment with God endures. This is not the end of your journey. It is a turning point. A moment where faith moves from endurance to expression. A season where trust becomes visible. God is not only blessing you for your sake, but for the impact your obedience will have beyond you. What He is about to do will ripple into lives you may never meet, into places you may never visit, into futures you may never fully see. And now, as this message continues to unfold within you, understand that God is also restoring your confidence in His voice. There were times when you questioned whether you were hearing Him clearly, moments when uncertainty clouded your discernment because nothing around you seemed to confirm what you sensed within. Yet God was not silent. He was teaching you to recognize His voice without relying on external validation. He was training you to trust the inner witness of peace, even when circumstances argued otherwise. This is crucial, because the blessing that is coming will require you to move with confidence, rooted in intimacy, not in applause or approval. God knows how easy the human heart can become distracted when provision increases. That is why He has been deepening your inner life. He has been drawing you into stillness, into reflection, into moments where you learn to sit with Him without asking for anything. In those quiet spaces, something profound happened. Your dependence shifted. You began to love God not only for what He does, but for who He is. And from that place of genuine relationship, God releases blessings that do not replace devotion, but deepen it. You may not realize it yet, but your endurance has already changed the atmosphere around you. The way you have continued to believe, even when answers were delayed, has built spiritual authority within you. Authority does not come from titles or recognition. It comes from tested faith. When God entrusts wealth to a soul that has been tested, that wealth carries influence beyond numbers. It becomes a testimony that faith is not theoretical, but living and active. There will be a moment when you look back and recognize that what once felt like loss was actually redirection. Paths that closed were not failures, they were boundaries set by God's wisdom. If certain doors had remained open, they would have led you away from the very provision God was preparing. God does not merely add blessings, He orders steps. Every detour, every delay, every disappointment has been woven into a design far more intentional than you could have imagined. As this new season approaches, God is inviting you to release the habit of self-protection. Scarcity teaches people to hold tightly, to guard obsessively, to fear depletion. But God is teaching you a different rhythm, the rhythm of trust. Trust. T does not mean carelessness, it means confidence in God's sufficiency. When wealth arrives in the hands of someone who trusts God, generosity becomes natural, wisdom becomes instinctive, and fear loses its grip. Be mindful that the blessing will test your focus as much as your faith. Distractions will present themselves as priorities. Voices will attempt to define success for you. But God has already written a different definition into your spirit. Success in His economy is alignment. It is obedience sustained over time. It is faithfulness expressed quietly and consistently. Keep that definition close, and the blessing will serve you instead of consuming you. God is also healing your relationship with expectation. For a long time, you trained yourself not to expect too much because disappointment felt safer than hope. But God is restoring your capacity to expect again, not recklessly, but reverently. Expectation rooted in God is not presumption, it is agreement with His nature. To expect from God is to honor who He is. And right now, God is inviting you to expect provision without anxiety, abundance without guilt, increase without fear. When the wealth manifests, remember that it is not proof of your worth, but evidence of God's faithfulness. Let this keep your heart grounded. Let it remind you that your value was established long before the blessing appeared. You are not becoming significant because of provision. Provision is coming because God has already deemed you trustworthy. There is also a deeper freedom God is releasing alongside the wealth. The freedom from constant worry, the freedom from calculating every outcome, the freedom from living in survival mode. This freedom is as valuable as the provision itself. It will allow you to think clearly, to give joyfully, to plan wisely. And in that freedom, your life will reflect the peace that comes from trusting God fully. Do not rush ahead of grace. Let God set the pace. Walk attentively, prayerfully, humbly. The blessing does not need to be chased. It will arrive at the appointed time. Your role is to remain receptive, obedient, and anchored in truth. God's promises do not expire, and His timing does not fail. Even now, unseen shifts are happening. Conversations are aligning. Opportunities are forming. Resources are being positioned. God is working with a precision that surpasses human planning. And when it all converges, you will recognize the harmony of His hand in every detail. And as this moment deepens, God is also addressing the quiet tension you carry. The tension between trust and control. There were seasons when you tried to manage outcomes because waiting felt unbearable. You learned to calculate, to predict, to prepare for disappointment before it arrived. But God is gently loosening that grip now. He is teaching you that control is not safety and surrender is not weakness. True rest is born when you allow God to hold what you were never meant to carry alone. The wealth that is coming will arrive alongside this rest because God does not bless a heart that is imprisoned by fear. You are being invited into a higher level of trust, one that does not depend on visible reassurance. God is asking you to believe not because you see evidence, but because you know His character. This kind of faith is rare and it is precious to Him. It is the faith that moves quietly, steadily, confidently, even when the world around you is unstable. And it is this faith that God honors with provision that cannot be explained by circumstance alone. God is also restoring dignity to areas where you once felt diminished. There were moments when lack made you feel small, when limitation whispered lies about your value. But God never measured you by what you had. He measured you by your willingness to trust Him when having less would have been a reason to quit. The wealth He is releasing now carries restoration with it. It restores not only resources, but confidence. It rebuilds what was eroded by years of strain. It reminds you that dependence on God is not humiliation, it is strength. As this unfolds, remain mindful that God's blessings often arrive with responsibility disguised as opportunity. You may be called to manage wisely, to choose carefully, to remain disciplined, even when abundance becomes normal. This is not restriction, it is stewardship. God's generosity flows most freely through hands that remain attentive to His guidance. Listen closely, stay responsive. The same God who provides will also instruct, and His instruction will preserve what He gives. There will be moments when others misunderstand the journey that led you here. They will see the fruit without knowing the roots. They may assume ease where there was endurance, luck where there was faith. Let this not trouble you. God knows the full story. He remembers every hidden prayer, every quiet sacrifice, every moment you chose trust over bitterness. That recognition is enough. Your peace does not come from being understood, but from being aligned with God. God is also refining your relatio and ship with time. Waiting once felt like punishment, but now you are beginning to see it as investment. Time spent trusting God is never lost. It deepens wisdom, sharpens discernment, and strengthens resilience. When the wealth arrives, you will have the maturity to manage it with clarity instead of impulse, with purpose instead of pressure. This is part of the blessing itself. Stay alert to the subtle ways God speaks. Guidance may come through an inner conviction, a persistent peace, a gentle restraint. God's voice is not always loud, but it is always consistent with His nature. When He leads you toward the provision He has prepared, there will be a sense of rightness that settles deep within your spirit. Follow that peace. It is a safeguard. Do not let fear of change hold you back. God never calls you forward without equipping you internally. You are not stepping into the unknown alone. God goes before you. The wealth that is coming will not overwhelm you because God has already expanded your capacity. You are stronger than you realize, not because of confidence in yourself, but because of confidence built through reliance on God. And even now, as this message resonates within you, let gratitude rise, not for what you hope will come, but for who God has been throughout the journey. Gratitude anchors you in truth. It keeps your heart steady as new doors open. It reminds you that God's faithfulness is not seasonal, it is constant. What lies ahead is not merely increase, but clarity, not merely provision, but peace. God is aligning your inner world with your outer world so that what He gives does not disturb your spirit, but reflects it. This harmony is rare and it is sacred. Remain faithful in the quiet moments. Remain obedient in the small decisions. Remain humble as expectation grows. God is working with precision, patience, and purpose. And when the moment arrives, when the unexpected becomes tangible, you will recognize it not as coincidence, but as confirmation. Confirmation that God was present in every step, faithful in every delay, and generous beyond measure. And now, as you stand in this unfolding moment, God is drawing your attention to something deeper than provision itself. He is reminding you that wealth is a language He speaks fluently, but it is never the only language. God is concerned with your wholeness. He is shaping a life that reflects His order, His peace, His wisdom. The blessing that approaches is not isolated. It is connected to a broader restoration taking place within you. God is aligning your thoughts, your desires, and your expectations so that what He gives externally will not conflict with what He is building internally. There were seasons when you prayed for relief, not understanding that God was developing resilience. You asked for ease, but He gave you endurance. You asked for answers, but He gave you intimacy. At the time, it felt like delay. Now it is becoming clear that God was strengthening your foundation so that when increase comes, it rests on something unshakable. A weak foundation collapses under weight, but a strengthened one supports expansion. God has been fortifying you for what is ahead. Notice how your perspective has changed. Problems that once overwhelmed you no longer have the same power. Fear that once dominated your thinking no longer controls your decisions. This is not coincidence. This is evidence of growth. God has been quietly maturing your faith so that you are no longer moved by every fluctuation, but anchored in His consistency. This steadiness is essential because the blessing God releases will require clarity, not reaction. God is also teaching you to recognize abundance without anxiety. Scarcity trains the mind to anticipate loss, to expect disappointment. But God is renewing your mind to expect provision without tension. This is a sacred shift. It allows you to receive without guilt, to enjoy without fear, to give without hesitation. The wealth that is coming will not demand your peace as payment. God does not bless by stealing rest. He blesses by multiplying it. As you move forward, you may sense an invitation to step into spaces that once intimidated you. Opportunities may arise that challenge old self-perceptions. Do not shrink back. God does not open doors to test your worth. He opens them to reveal His sufficiency. If He leads you there, He will sustain you there. Trust the leading, even when your confidence feels quieter than your calling. God's strength is perfected not in certainty, but in reliance. There is also a humility God is preserving within you. He knows how easily the human heart can drift when life becomes comfortable. That is why He has trained you to remain grounded in gratitude. Gratitude will be your compass. It will keep your vision clear when choices multiply. It will keep your heart tender when responsibility increases. It will keep you aware that everything you steward flows from God's hand. Be aware that as God elevates you, He also refines your discernment. Not every invitation deserves your time. In OT, every request aligns with your purpose. Wisdom will become more important than enthusiasm. Learn to say no without guilt and yes without fear. God's guidance will not pressure you into haste. It will lead you with peace. Follow that peace faithfully. You are entering a season where testimony will replace explanation. You will no longer need to defend your journey or justify your patience. The evidence of God's faithfulness will speak for itself. Yet even then, guard your heart from pride. Remember the nights you waited, the moments you doubted, the prayers whispered through tears. Let those memories keep you compassionate toward others who are still waiting. God is also reminding you that increase is not an end point. It is a resource. It is a means through which His character is expressed. Use it with wisdom. Carry it with humility. Let it reflect His generosity rather than your achievement. When wealth rests in hands guided by God, it becomes a force for restoration rather than distraction. Even now, unseen alignments are accelerating. God is arranging timing, positioning people, shifting circumstances with precision that exceeds human strategy. What feels slow to you is often careful in His hands. Trust the pace, trust the process. God has not forgotten the promise, and He has not miscalculated the moment. As this message settles into your spirit, let peace be your confirmation. Not excitement alone, not urgency alone, but peace, steady, grounded, unwavering. That peace is the signature of God's involvement. It is the assurance that what is coming is not borrowed from tomorrow, but prepared by God Himself. Remain faithful where you are. Remain attentive to His voice. Remain open to the unexpected. God is faithful, and He is generous beyond measure. What He is releasing will not only meet needs, but reveal His nature. And when it arrives, you will know with certainty that the same God who sustained you in the waiting has now fulfilled